kind of record what we're doing so I can write down.
I would.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to Your City, Your County. We're very happy to have as our guests today the mayor of Algoma, Wayne R. Schmidt, I'm sorry, Wayne R. Schmidt, and
Thanks, Bob.
also our Algoma treasurer, Amber Shallow. Amber,
Thanks, Bob.
very nice to have you. I'm Bob Gray, and it's nice to have you along today as well. Thank you for joining us. Today's a big day for the city of Algoma. We're recording this on the 11th of December, and this afternoon, I understand that the 2nd Street Bridge is going to open. That's pretty exciting news for this city.
Definitely. It's long overdue. The opening, the whole project started back in July of this year, and it was anticipated that the bridge would be opening in October or November sometime. So we not only went through our Shanty Days weekend and our Wine Fest weekend with some construction going on in the area, but a lot of the businesses, I mean, it was an inconvenience for the businesses, an inconvenience for our citizens. So everybody's kind of looking forward to this afternoon when actually the 2nd Street Bridge, or County S Bridge, will now be open. We're excited about it. We're not doing a big fanfare today, but we're going to wait till later in spring when hopefully the weather's a little warmer than it is today. I mean, minus 5 degrees is a little cold to stand outside, but we'll make sure that some of us drive across it for the first time. And like I said, along with the bridge itself, the city had some infrastructure work that we've done. We did 2nd Street, we did 3rd Street, we replaced water and sewer where needed, curb and gutter, sidewalk. So that has all been done now for several weeks, and the first mat of blacktop has been down so that it's not an inconvenience for the winter months with snow removal and things. So all the citizens and all the businesses along there, it was quite an inconvenience. So I'm pretty excited that that's behind us and we can move forward. So
Good. Well, driving in on County S today, I noticed that all the detour signs are gone, and I thought, this is good news.
yeah, when you came in, you still had to use the detour, and I would love to say when this program is done that you'll be able to go home across that bridge, but you won't until after 4 o'clock.
Probably not, no. But by the time this gets aired, I'm sure that the bridge will be
It'll be open.
So everyone will have to go and try it.
Right.
It could be quite an intersection there with
Well,
everyone
it was
trying.
funny because with the construction of the bridge, if you looked at it from the 4th Street Bridge and you looked down the river and you saw the bridge with all the beams and stuff that they had to use for construction, it looked like you wouldn't even be able to get under this bridge with the high water. But actually, the new bridge is going to be a foot higher than the 4th Street Bridge. So that's
Okay.
good. That's good
Yeah.
for boaters. So.
Sure, okay, good. Well, we'll be anxiously awaiting that.
Good.
And if you're out there, try the new bridge. Also, as our guest, we have, as I mentioned, Amber Shallow, who is the Algoma treasurer. And I understand that you have held various positions in the city of Algoma.
Yeah, so I've been with the city for about 6 years now, a little over 6 years. And when I first started, I was hired as the assistant deputy clerk treasurer.
That still sounds important.
We did quite a bit of work helping out the other positions within the city. Over the years, we've restructured. At one point, we restructured a little bit. I became the deputy treasurer and assistant clerk. And with the recent retiring of the city administrator this past spring, we decided we were going to restructure again. The administrator used to be the administrator, the clerk, and the treasurer. So now we've split those positions up, and I am the treasurer and deputy clerk, and we have a clerk and a deputy treasurer. So,
Oh, okay.
and then when we eventually hire a new administrator, they will be just the administrator.
Okay, so that'll be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
How does, and let me turn back to you, Mayor Schmidt. How does that affect the position of the new administrator? He's going to be having different responsibilities, I suppose, than what the previous administrator had.
Yeah, when we looked at the position, after visiting with a lot of different communities and talking to a lot of different people, they felt that filling an administrator, clerk, treasurer's position is a hard position to fill because you had to be a jack of all trades, so to speak. So that's why we decided to promote the two individuals in our office, which were very capable of doing the treasurer and the clerk position. So now when we advertise, we just advertise for an administrator. Now that person will basically, they'll have some knowledge of the clerk's position, some knowledge of the treasurer's position, but that position will basically be the individual that's going to go out and help us to try to get new businesses into town, to oversee the entire operation, not to be a micromanager and go to the police department and say, this is how you need to run your department, or public works, or the park and rec. So that individual, hopefully, will have that position filled sometime in February. We went out, we've put the RFP out, we've had several applications. We narrowed those down, and out of those, we came up with 4 individuals that we wanted to interview. At the end of the interview process, we basically narrowed it down to 2 people, and we had the individuals, we interviewed them, we went through it. So right now, a week from today, the Finance Personnel Committee will be meeting, and they'll hopefully be coming back with a recommendation of hiring an individual to start sometime in February.
Are the names of those individuals, are they public at this point?
No,
or,
not at this point. We don't like to publicize. We have always met in closed session. We don't know if that individual has talked to his employer or not
Sure.
about applying for the position. So we kind of keep that under wraps until the formal motion will be made at a council meeting of hiring this individual.
Sounds like a pretty good plan to me.
Well, what'll be nice about it, it'll give you another person to interview on your show. So
That's great.
Yes.
Okay, well, that'll be your responsibility to send him over.
I'll definitely do that, so.
Very good. Well, we look forward to seeing him soon. And once again, Amber, going to turn to you to tell us a little bit about the budget for this year, or this
Yeah,
coming year, I guess we
2020.
should say. How does that look? How are your plans coming along?
The budget has actually been passed. The council voted on it on December 2nd. We worked really hard with the department heads this year to keep the tax increase to a minimum. We are very fortunate to work with some really great banks to get some great interest rates. The city is getting a return on our investments of between 1% to 2.5%, depending on CDs and savings and things like that. Most individuals in this market are seeing 0.15 to 0.5% on their savings accounts. So unless you're very fortunate and have some really good deals with your bank, you aren't seeing anywhere near what we're getting. Those high interest earnings have helped us keep that tax levy increase to a minimum. So this year, we had, our tax increase was only 1.58%. So the city's portion of your tax bill only went up about 1.5%. We did, however, have growth within the city on equalized value. So the citizens of Algoma are carrying a little bit bigger piece of the levy from the county and the school districts. So the overall tax bills went up about 4%.
So that's certainly not all your, I hate to say your fault.
Right. There's only so
But-
much the city can
Yes, yes.
control.
Yeah.
And that, even though we can't control how the county and the school district's levies are set, the mayor and the council are very aware of what the other jurisdictions are doing, and they try very hard to limit our increase, to kind of offset those other jurisdictions, which isn't always easy to do because sometimes that means cutting our budget where we wouldn't otherwise have to. So,
Yeah. So people have to consider that it's not only you, but it's the county, it's the, I'm sure NWTC,
Yep. Yep.
Northeast Wisconsin Technical College, the school district, and all of those people are also involved
Yes.
with doing that. And so you have to take those figures and put those all together and decide what the bills are going to be.
yep.
Not being a citizen of Algoma, have those bills been sent out?
They have. So we passed the budget resolution and the levy on Monday night. On Tuesday, we got everything to the county for our mill rate worksheets, which is how they calculate all the tax bills. And we had the bills back in the office on Wednesday and ready to go out in the mail by Friday morning. So
Okay.
we've already started to see some people
So-
coming in with their tax bills to make their payments.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
So they're not all waiting until
No,
January.
They don't.
January
Which is nice, because
31st
that helps
to-
kind of keep the rush to a minimum.
Yeah, yeah.
So.
Do you hire extra help
We
to
do
keep
not.
you going?
We do
wow.
not. So normally it's Jamie and I in the office that are folding and stuffing those bills. We do have a administrator intern from UWGB in the office that helped a little bit this year. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to help Jamie stuff the bills because I was busy working on a grant for street work. So she kind of had to do it with the intern, but they got everything folded and stuffed in one day. And then throughout the tax season, with tax payments coming in between Jamie and I, we're pretty good about handling.
Well,
You know, I think at the most we maybe had 3 or 4 people waiting.
Mhm.
And if everybody's got their bill number or their bill stub right there, you can get them in and out the door in a few minutes. So.
Mhm, mhm. Okay. Is that pretty much how the county operates, that each municipality collects their own
Yep.
taxes?
Yeah, so every municipality all throughout the county is going to collect up to January 31st. After
Mhm.
January 31st, all the payments will go directly to the county.
Okay.
So if you choose, you can either pay your full amount by January 31st, or you can pay the first half by January 31st. If you choose to do the first half, the second half isn't due until July 31st, but it can be paid at any time up
Mhm.
until that point.
Okay. And if you decide that, well, I'm going to wait till, July,
Mhm.
to pay it, do they still pay it at the office here, or?
Nope, at that time it goes to the Kewaunee County Treasurer.
Okay, so then you'd have to be in touch with with the county treasurer
Yeah.
to do that.
So most people at that point just mail it in. They do have some people who walk in and make the payments. Once in a while, we'll get payments that are mailed to the city here, and all we do with that is
Mhm.
we turn around and we put them in an envelope and mail them down to the
Mhm.
county for them.
Okay, well, I'm sure they're glad to
Yeah.
do that. What the heck, it's money coming in.
Mhm.
That's a good thing. Okay, are there grants out there available that help you in some ways and help the
Yeah.
city taxpayers?
So there are some. Unfortunately, over the last 5 to 10 years, you've really seen a lot of the grants kind of starting to dry up. There's not as much money out there available as there used to be. There is still some grants available, and we actually currently are sitting on, we have a $175,000 grant from the United States Environmental Protection Agency and a $75,000 grant from Fund for Lake Michigan. And so those monies are to be used for the Crescent Beach stormwater outfall redesign. So there's a stormwater drain that comes right out onto the northernmost part of the beach and then dumps right into Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
So we've worked with an engineer to design a bioretention pond, and that will kind of filter the water, put it through some plants and stuff before it actually goes into the lake.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with this project is the city cannot afford to do this project
No,
on
that
our
would
own.
be a very excessive amount.
So we actually put it out to bid, thinking that the whole project was going to be about $250,000, and the bids came in about $350 to $450.
Nice surprise.
Yeah, so we talked to EPA and said, hey, we've got this issue. We need to try and find some additional funding because we can't afford to do this without it. Can we get an extension on our grant? And thankfully, they said yes.
Mhm.
So that also has helped us with the recent high water in the lake, because where the bioretention pond was supposed to be is now right on the edge of the water.
Mm-hmm.
So the engineers are kind of working to move that pond up a little bit and away from the high water mark at this
Mhm.
point in time, to try and kind of keep that from being a problem in the future. So, and then we've also applied for additional funding from Fund for Lake Michigan to try and fund the balance of what's left, so.
Well, the retention pond, will that be, is that near the beach then, or?
Yep, so it'll be right out in front of the Algoma Youth Club. So there will be some
okay.
changes with parking and stuff down there as a
Mhm.
result of this project.
Yeah, and I suppose you have to fence that off or something, don't
Yeah,
you?
once the work gets started, then it'll have to be fenced off.
Mhm.
We're hoping to put it back out to bid, because to keep with the state laws, we had to reject all the bids, and then we'll put it
Mm.
back out to bid come January. We were hoping to have it out to bid already, but with having to redesign that pond, it's pushing it back a
Mhm.
little bit. And then hopefully the contractor that is selected will have the work done probably by midsummer, late summer.
Mhm.
Hopefully before Shanty Days gets here.
Yes,
So.
yes. We don't need
Yeah.
more conglomeration at
Yeah.
that.
So
period, because
that's
so
one
busy.
grant that we have in place now. And I had
Mhm.
mentioned earlier, I was working on what's called an MLS grant. So this is a new grant program that the state put out. It's brand new.
What does MLS stand for?
MLS stands for Multimodal Local Supplement.
Whoa.
Yes. So multimodal means that it can be used for streets, for trails, for harbors, transportation systems like bus lines, things like that. And this grant is going to be very, very competitive. There's only about, I think it's $75 million available for everybody in the state. And your maximum that you could request was $3,500,000, and there's only a 10% match requirement. So we did request the full amount, we would only have to supply $350,000 to match it. So what we did is I worked with the Public Works Director, and we went through the city and looked at some of our worst roads that have fairly good infrastructure underneath the road, meaning the water, sewer, and storm lines, because the grant won't pay for that stuff. And we came up with some of the sections, and we wanted to go for broke. We're trying to get the maximum
Sure,
amount. We'll see
you
if it
bet.
happens, but so the total project that we submitted is $5.6 million. Of that, about $725,000 is sewer, and then the rest would be stormwater and streets. And so the city will have a slightly higher match because they'll only award $3.5 million if we get the grant. So
Now, if you get that grant, would that be into the 2021 budget?
So we won't hear probably till late 2020 if we were awarded anything. And then once we receive award, we have 6 years to complete the projects.
Oh,
We probably
well,
won't take the
that's,
full 6 years, but it definitely is going to be spread over a couple of years.
Okay, so we don't have to
So-
come up with that money instantly and say, gee, we need an extra 350,000 this year.
Yep. No, we will work it into our regular capital improvement plan and the borrowing that we do for that.
Good. Well, it
So-
sounds like you're doing some very progressive things. And
Trying.
That's great. That is terrific. Very good. Let me ask whichever one of you would like to discuss the housing situation in Algoma at this point.
Well, I think this will be a two-parter for her and I both
Good.
to talk
You guys
about,
go
because
ahead.
We've got some issues. It's no secret, there is a shortage of good housing in the city of Algoma. I'll give you an example. I attended a meeting on Monday night where the individual that was at that meeting that represented the school system said they have, of course, contracts going out for new teachers coming up in the next school year, and those people are looking to try to rent in Algoma rather than renting in Green Bay or wherever and commuting. And he asked a question about, what about renting in Algoma? There are some nice upscale rentals on the southwestern part of the city, but there isn't a lot of individual, like duplexes and things like that people can rent. We definitely know there's a shortage. I mentioned to an individual not that long ago that said, boy, if I could find a place to rent, I'm getting to the point where I don't want to cut grass anymore. I don't want to shovel snow. I'm afraid of walking outside with the ice. There is definitely a need for that type of housing where people can go in. Everything is done for them as far as the outside. They have their own home. They have 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom home or whatever. They're independent. They don't need to basically rely on anybody like an assisted living or a nursing home. So there is definitely a need. So upscale housing, for example, there is a new development going on Highway 42 south of the city at the intersection of 42 and County K, where there are some new condominiums going up. Bell Harbor is the name of the condominiums that are going up. It's done in 3 phases. There's going to be one building, and then there's going to be another one, and then down the road, a third building, which is all part of a TIF district that the city has established. The problem with those is those are really upscale. So, I mean, people come in, they buy the condo, they own it. course, they pay their own taxes and everything, but it's not like the level that we're looking for as far as rental.
The real affordable.
Affordable
housing.
renting, not, not the type of renting that's basically considered your real low housing, income type renting. The middle of the road type, the person that has a decent living, makes maybe $45,000-$50,000 a year, $60,000 a year, but wants a nice place to rent. Along with that, I'm going to reverse over to Amber, because she's going to talk a little bit about a project that we're currently working on in the downtown area that would help alleviate some of that problem that we're having. So,
Okay, all right.
So the city kind of identified that we have a need for this housing. The problem with it is, how do you pay for it all? So the county had some community development block grant funds from years ago that the federal government had given out, and it was used mainly for housing improvements for low to moderate income families. Throughout the years, that program has changed a lot, and the federal government has said, hey, we don't want to be administering this anymore. Either that money needs to be paid back, or you need to give it out as a grant and get rid of it. So the county came to all the different jurisdictions in the county and asked us all to kind of give them some ideas of projects we'd like to use that money for, and then they awarded money to two jurisdictions, City of Algoma.
So this is partly a county plan
Yep.
also then?
Yes, a little bit. The City of Kewanee and the City of Algoma both received grant from that. It's called the CDBG Closeout Grant. We found out from the state that there's additional CDBG granting available, and we can use that closeout grant funds as a match. So we don't have to use any city taxpayer dollars. We can use this grant as a match for their grant. So we are going to work with the county and the City of Kewanee to put in a joint application and try and get some additional funding. And then if everything goes well, we'll have about $1 million that we can help residents either improve the current home, or if the home is in too bad of disrepair, then we can either tear it down and rebuild, or work with the developer to redevelop the site with some townhomes, duplexes, maybe apartments. We're not quite sure how that's going to look yet, but because we're in the very early planning stages. So the city did hire a consultant to go out and look at an area fairly close to the school, in the grocery store and parks, and the area was found to be blighted. There will be some action taken at council if they so choose. They don't have to accept it as blighted area, but if they decide to declare it as blighted, then that will help us with that CDBG grant money, because one of the things that it can be used for is redevelopment of a blighted area.
So will this be working with private funds as well, or will this be more just the city being involved? Well, you explain to me. I think I'm getting tongue-tied.
So the city isn't going to be the lead person on this, no matter how this shakes out. We do have a consultant that is very familiar with all the CDBG grant requirements that will take, so if any individual is going to get a grant to redo their house, they will have to apply, prove they're income eligible, so that low to moderate income, and again, we're aiming more towards the moderate income, because that seems to be the biggest need in our city. And if they meet all the requirements, then they can be granted money to do improvements on their home. And if we end up doing a redevelopment, then the city will work with the developer to come in, use those grant funds to redevelop the area.
And that would be more like with what you've said is a blighted area.
Yep.
Okay, that sounds good. It would seem to me, Mayor Schmidt, that there is certainly a need, as we're looking at growing industry and so on. And part of this, I would imagine, is if that you do get people finding various places to go to. Don't worry, I've had my phone do that before. In fact, it happened twice on this show one
Sorry
time.
about that.
No, that's okay.
It's the mayor's phone, so.
Yes, well, that's important.
Yeah.
Is it red?
No, it's not.
No, okay. But getting back to the topic, that if you are putting people into condominiums, then that frees up some of the other homes in town, as well as I would imagine that by supplying, more homes and so on, you're really filling a need that the community has to find housing.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with the age of the community. I mean, the city of Algoma is above average when it comes to senior citizens. And those are the people that are on fixed incomes. Those are the people, like I said, that no longer want to shovel snow or cut grass. They all own their own homes, nice homes. They kept them up well, but it's at a point where now I no longer can keep my home, but I don't want to go into an assisted living or a nursing home. That being said, if we have these apartments available for these people, then it does all of a sudden open up a market where a young family says, I want to buy a starter home. I can't afford to spend $200,000 on a home, but I can afford to spend 85 to maybe 100. That price range right now, there's a real market for those. Those homes go up for sale and they're sold within a couple months because good starter homes.
Yeah.
And then the stepping stone for maybe getting a bigger home or buying a more expensive home. So that being said, yeah, this is kind of a snowballing effect. We're looking at this very closely because just a proximity of trying to do some housing that's people are close to the downtown, people are close to schools, to put it way on the west side of town would probably not be a good idea, just because a lot of these people no longer drive. And we also want to look at veterans because a lot of the funding is involving veterans. It seems like the states and the federal government is saying, we have monies available if you can provide some housing for our veterans. So it'd kind of be a combination that we'd be looking at
You
doing.
bet. And you don't want to have to expand tremendously your infrastructure by building brand new roads and new streets and expanding the sewers and the water pipes and all of those things if you can keep them
Well,
centrally located.
that's important now. Like where I live, that was a new development. But the property owner that developed it, he picked up the cost on all the infrastructure, and then he just built it into the cost of the lots that he sold, which is the way to go for the city, because now the city doesn't have to expend out dollars to put in sewer or water and then try to recoup it after a while. So those are the kind of developments that as a city, we say, hey, this is great. We encourage you to come to Algoma. Along with that, too, a lot of people that are buying homes came here to visit, or they were on their way to Door County and they stopped in Algoma and they said, you know what, this is a beautiful community. You come into the city and you look, when you're coming and going north, you look to the lake. You see the beautiful beaches. You see the high water that we're currently having and the problems we're having. And that's another issue we could talk about. But people look at that and they fall in love with the city. It's a beautiful city. It's a small city. I always say, come as a visitor and you leave as a friend type of thing, So we encourage that. We have a good industrial base here, but we also rely on tourism. So it's kind of a good cross. And people are finding out, you're from Door County, everybody travel through, couldn't wait to get to Door County. Now with the expenses of staying in Door County, people are saying, hey, I can rent a room in Algoma. I don't have to have a 2 or 3 night minimum. It's a lot cheaper, and I can drive up and spend a day in Door County.
Oh, sure.
I come back at night, I stay in Algoma, we have good restaurants and everything. Then the next day I can drive up and go to Washington Island or whatever. So we're kind of basically reaping the harvest off of Door County, so to speak, which is good for us. We need to take advantage of it.
And I think it's wonderful that there is cooperation between the areas. We're all on the same peninsula. So, I think that's going to help everybody.
Oh, definitely, definitely.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, as long as I have the floor right now, the Algoma, through the state tourism, has been chosen to basically do a study on tourism. There was only 2 cities in Wisconsin that have been chosen, and Algoma was one of them. So we're currently putting a committee together, and we're currently going to put out a survey. And for people that are watching this at home, there's a survey that's put out by the Chamber online. You can pick up the survey at City Hall. We need 250 surveys filled out, and it's only 5 questions. But with this and the ability to work with the state of Wisconsin on tourism, we're going to be able to look at what are our needs. Where should we focus? For example, kayaking. Kayaking is very popular. We now have a couple that opened up a kayak shop over at Olson Park. We put in a kayak handicap launching ramp. That's become popular, and of course with the high water, you can take the river and you can go any place you want. You can go to Forestville, you could go down, take the river around and go out to the lake. So that's just another added thing that you can do when you come to Algoma. We always focused on fishing. Well, the husband comes up fishing, he brings his wife and his kids along. What do they do?
Mm-hmm.
What do they do while they're here? And we're trying to create things to keep them busy also. And like I said, I volunteer at the chamber also, so I get a lot of people that come in from different areas. I mean, different states and stuff. They'll stop in, geez, they look out the window, look at that beautiful lake.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was born and raised here, and I look at that, and to me, it's just a body of water, right? Visitors come and they look at this and they just marvel at the view that we have and the things that go on. So we're pretty excited about the direction that the city is going. We think there's a lot of positives. Of course, we run into negatives like any other community.
Every community will find.
The high water is an example right now. When Amber talks about the stormwater project that we want to do along 42 along the lake, all of a sudden now our plans have to change with the retention pond because of the high water. We've had a situation that we've had all these tires that are washing up on our beach. So far to date, we've had over like 150 tires that have washed up. And of course, you have to pay to get rid of them. Nobody takes old tires. So it's been costing the city some additional funds. We're still trying to figure out where they're coming from.
They don't have names or
They don't have
addresses
names on them. They're older tires. We had the local tire shop look at them, and they're all different sizes, truck tires, car tires, but they're not like, somebody used them to put rubber tires on their docks that they would have broke loose or something. They're actually tires that were on vehicles, so where they're coming from, we don't know. But
Well, I'll tell you, if I drive along somewhere and I see somebody tossing their
Tires.
tires in the lake,
let us know.
I'll let you know.
We'd
You'll be the
appreciate
first
that.
person I'll call. You'll be the second.
Yeah.
That's going to do it pretty much for our show today, and I'd like to thank both of you for being here. Mayor Wayne R. Schmidt, thank you so much.
Thank you, Bob. We
Appreciate
appreciate the show. I like it because it gives people at home an opportunity, number one. My goal is that every staff member gets to do this show, so people get to put the name and the face together.
Good.
And I thank Amber, and to be willing to do the show, and I think it's good for the community. So.
Good. And Amber, it wasn't as scary as you thought it might be.
Yes.
We try and keep the balls pretty slow,
Yeah.
slow pitch. So anyway, thank you both so much for
Thank
being
you.
here.
Thank you.
It's been fun, and it always is. That's going to do it for our show today. We've been speaking with the Algoma Mayor, Wayne R. Schmidt, and the Algoma Treasurer, Amber Shallow. And we thank you so much for being with us today. I'm Bob Gray. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.